Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. Last week I had the pleasure of chatting with Mitchell Zuckoff. He is the author of 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. An award-winning author with New York Times and also a journalist. And I think this New York Times bestseller, as a matter of fact. And I thought it was a great story and asked him if there was a possibility I could either chat with him or any of the subjects of the book. And since he's on the hustings and very busy and talking to so many other people, we have had the pleasure now instead to have joining us Kris Tanto Paronto. And he smiled a moment ago when we just chatted before we started the program. He's not used to that name. Everyone on the crew of the program there in Benghazi, the members of the Annex who are providing security services for the government, all had nicknames, and I'm looking forward to this. Kris, thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate this, sir.
No, I appreciate it. It's an honor, and especially in your location, and knowing who your listeners are, being, I'm sure, several veterans and even active duty personnel. Even though I was a Ranger, I know you got a lot of Marines out there. Hey, if anything's close to a Marine and I mean, we're very similar. I think a lot of Marines and Rangers would tell you the same.
Absolutely.
So it's an honor to go.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's start with you, your background. As a matter of fact, you were in the Army, 75th Ranger Regiment. How long did you serve, and where did you serve?
Sure, I was at 2nd Ranger Battalion. Actually served there for 3 years, and then I went to 19 Special Forces for 3 years, so 6 years. And then I did 9 years as a contractor, starting actually generally in near your area at Blackwater, and then moving on as a direct hire contractor for the United States government, where I didn't work with a sub. I didn't work with a Blackwater or Triple Canopy. It was basically getting directly hired by the U.S. government as a security / paramilitary contractor.
Now, you had done this for years. Now, you flew into Benghazi, and I'm curious as to what you were expecting when you got the call for this job.
You know, at that point in time, I was, for a kind term, I was seasoned at that time. I'd been on a lot of deployments to the Middle East, and even deployments outside of the realm of government. Several private deployments just with local private companies. And so I expected it to be just like everybody else, every other place I've been to. Dirty, lack of electricity, a lot of people running around, just a lot of chaos and not a lot of, running water scarce, you just hot. It was the same as every other place you go to in the Middle East or North Africa. I don't explain. It's the Middle East. It's what you see on TV. There's always trash bags. Plastic trash bags flying everywhere. And it's just there's not a lot of infrastructure, to put it that way. So, but I'm used to it. In fact, when I get it, it's nice. It's like I'm back home. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm back in normal. I'm back in the Middle East. Let's get to work. And so it didn't bother me.
All right, our guest, by the way, Kris Tanto Paronto. Tanto is his nickname, and we're talking with him about the book 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. And we're talking about, of course, the event that took Christopher Stevens' life and 3 other Americans. We're going to be chatting about that here with our guest. And our guest, he's a little, well, I'll say a little humble. You have a master's degree in criminal justice as well, do you not?
Oh, yeah, I do. You're the first person that's asked me that. I do actually. I have my master's degree, and actually, I was halfway to finishing a double, and then I decided that's when I basically got my officer's commission. And I'm sorry, enlisted guys, I was enlisted before. I made my E5, and then I decided to become an officer. And got my because I did it through a green to gold program, basically getting enlisted and getting my master's. Yeah,
I was in the Navy, and we called that Mustang, and they made the best officers, in my opinion. So you're a Mustanger on top of all that. That's important.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that.
Well, that says an awful lot about you, and also says a lot about the team. Of course, we're talking about the events there in Benghazi. Tanto, let's talk about what you found. It's interesting. I made note of some comments made in the book. And the book, by the way, 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. And a comment that the author, Mitchell Zuckoff, makes mention of when Tyrone, a.k.a. Roan Woods, picked up, and by the way, Roan lost his life in this event, one of the other members of the team that was killed, when he's picking up Jack Teagan, Tig, as he's known.
Jack Silva.
Jack Silva.
That was Jack, the pseudo Jack. Yeah. John Teagan is another one that is using his true name. Jack is the pseudo.
Yeah, Jack, that's right, Jack Silva. He mentions in here that Roan points out that Benghazi is a lawless city. I find that interesting in light of the fact that we were trying to open a consulate there. When he says a lawless city, I gather it involves a lot of different groups of, tribal units there?
Yeah, you could say tribes. They just basically they are militias. Tribes. Mm-hmm. The militias are all based off families that have either pulled together or tribal names that are friendly to one another. But tribes, I would say more militias, because militias denotes the fact that these guys were carrying weapons, were more aggressive to us and to each other. So militias, I think, is a better word to describe it.
So you're coming into this area. Your job is to provide security. Tell us what happens, how this all begins on that fateful night, September 11th.
Sure. Actually, myself, I was on a quick reaction force. Myself and DB, we were on the standby team for the day, supporting guys that were out in town, our own guys, not the State Department guys, our guys that were out in town. And Mark, as you read in 13 Hours, those that do read it or have read it, that Mark Oz Geist was actually out on an operation that night, as well was John Teagan. They were doing a site assessment. So myself and DB were basically on standby, weapons ready, and just waiting for them to get back from their operation so we could all go to bed that night. And that's when we got the call around 9:32 that that we were supposed to muster. All available GRS were supposed to muster in the team room, and that's when we found that the consulate was under attack.
Well, let's talk here for a quick moment. You use the description GRS. Describe that for folks.
Sure, that is the Global Response Staff. That is the security wing of the agency. That's who we work for in our. That's the office. They are the agency. That's just what our office is called. It's just like being called an Army Ranger or a U.S. Marine. That's our name for the security office that we work for as part of the, I can't say it, but the three-letter agency that we work for.
Understood fully. With that said, so you get the call about 9 o'clock, and for those in the military, 2100. What do you do? And is it a call to go out in the field, or is it a call to stand by to be called out? What was going to happen?
It actually is a call to come to the team room to find out. We don't want to put the for fear of panic, and the military guys understand this, especially if you're working with civilians. You don't want to put the call that something's under attack on the radio just because it may set in panic. Now everybody's going to find out anyway, but you try to remain calm on the radio. So we all need to muster in the team room so we can start gathering information of what's going on, and hopefully get a salute report, get a size of the unit, what activity they're doing, what location they're at, who the unit is that we're going to be fighting against, and the time and what equipment they have. And that's basically what it was. But once we got the call and we started moving to the team room, everybody knew what they needed to do. We knew something was wrong, so we basically just started getting geared up, which was getting our armor on, getting our Mitch helmets on, nods, our night vision goggles, just getting ready for battle, basically is what we're doing.
Now, this is at the Annex, right?
Yes, that's at the Annex, and we were ready to go. 5 minutes, we were ready. We were ready to roll out the gates. About 9:37, we were ready to go.
All right, two quick questions. How far from the consulate were you? How far away was the Annex from the consulate?
It's about 3/4 of a mile as the crow flies, about a mile drive.
Okay, and you said a moment ago, Mark Osgeist and John Teagan, they were out doing an assessment. Were they in the city at the time?
Yeah, actually, Mark was actually on an op with the case officer doing a protection op. John was out, doing a site assessment, which was near the consulate. It wasn't on his way home. He actually made it home and got back in time to go over with us when we departed to go help at the consulate. Actually, Oz did not. He got actually stuck in town. But the importance of me bringing that up with John is he actually had driven by the consulate 30 minutes prior
Wow.
to the actual to its actual attack. And it says it's very specifically in the book. There was no indication of there being a protest or a gathering. In fact, it was very, very quiet. And this is 30 minutes before the place was attacked. The U.S. consulate was attacked. That's why I kind of wanted to throw that in there, because it is important. So when people say, well, it's due to a video or due to a protest, well, no, we were right next to it 30 minutes before it happened. There was no protest there next to the consulate.
Kris, we're looking at a town that's lawless. We recognize that.
Yeah.
Roan mentions that in his introduction at the outset, or, of course, Mitchell Zuckoff makes note of this, and Mitchell is the author. Yes. The environment is pretty dangerous. We recognize that. You get the call. The consulate is under attack. There has been no indication, as you mentioned a few moments ago, that John Tiggin, they call him Tig, noticed that there was nothing happening prior to 30 minutes prior to that event. All right, you get the call. Then what happens? You're there at the Annex, and we've heard the story that you were told to stand down. What exactly did take place?
Well, we were ready at 9:37. According to my watch, it was 9:37, and I went up to our, who we call Bob in our book, in 13 hours, and I went up to him and our team leader, and I said, "Hey, we're ready to go." I mean, we were jocked up, vehicles pointing in the right direction, ready to shoot out the gate. And I remember I said, "Hey," I looked right at Bob and I said, "Hey, we're up, we're ready to go." And he looked right through me, and like I didn't even exist. And he looked right at the TL, the team leader, and he said, "You guys need to wait." And I didn't ask any questions. I was a little upset, but and I've said this to everybody who's asked me. I'll give him that first 5 minutes. I understand. Okay, you know what? We thought, well, maybe he's trying to coordinate a link up with 17th February Martyrs Brigade, which. To me, still seemed kind of ridiculous because we had no rapport with them, or maybe he was trying to get clearance for us to go. I don't know. I said, all right. And I was a little upset, but as being an officer in the military, I understood that, okay, maybe he's trying to just get logistics right so we don't get into what we call a blue on green. We don't, basically a friendly fire incident with the local militias. So I walked back to the vehicle, and I get on the radio, and I said, hey, guys, I told him, he said we need to wait. And there were some guys that were a little upset. DB, he's a very calm individual. Him and I worked for 10 years together in several different countries, but he understood it as well. Being an NCO in Force Recon with the Marine Corps, he understood. It was 10 minutes later when we're still waiting there. It's been 15 minutes since the first call. Now we're starting to hear. So we shared the same radio frequencies as the State Department security officers, Scott Wicklund, Dave Ubben, Alec Henderson. And they're coming across the radio, hey, guys, fire's intensified. We need you here. Another 2 minutes go by. Guys, they're starting to light the buildings on fire. We need you guys to get here. So we're all hearing this, and we're like, well, why the hell are we still sitting here waiting? And I remember John, got out of the vehicle and went up to Bob and said, hey, we're losing the initiative. We need to go. And Bob looked right at him and said, you guys need to stand down. That was the famous stand-down words were spoken to John 15 minutes after we got the initial call. So now we're getting a little bit more upset. We're still trying to stay calm during this time. 10 more minutes go by, and I finally went up. I got out of the car, and now we're just the final straw came across when either and I don't know if it was Scott, Alec, or Dave, because the distress in the voice made it hard to understand who it was on the radio, but it said, hey, guys, the buildings are on fire. If you don't get here, we're going to die. And that's when I got out of the car, and I grabbed our team leader, and I said, hey, we need to get the F out of here right now. And we just disobeyed orders, and we left. And it was about 5 till 10 when we finally left and drove over there, and we got about halfway there, and then the fire to the actual front gate was too intense. We actually had to park, and we split up on teams, and we went on foot the rest of the way. So we didn't get there, and that took us a good 25 minutes, even though it was short, because of their ability to reinforce their consulate, and us not knowing where they were going to be at, and us trying to just get there and work our way there and fight our way to it. That we actually didn't get the consulate secure where we could look for the guys till 10:30. So it was a whole hour after that we got the first call before we actually were able to overtake the consulate again and then search out everybody and start looking for the ambassador and Sean Smith. So that delay really hurt us. It did. I'll say to this day again, if we would have left on time, if we would have left when we first wanted to, and John reiterated this during our special with Brett Baer, then I honestly believe we would have been able to save the ambassador and Sean Smith.
Our guest, Kris Tanto Paronto, and he is a former member of the Army 75th Ranger Regiment. I just want to make mention of that, and a member of the security team at the Benghazi Annex. And Kris, how many total crew members were on the security team?
Our security. You're asking about our security team, correct? The Annex security team. Yeah, there were 6 of us, 6 contractors, 6 contractors, 1 team leader.
And what was your job specifically? Was it to provide security for the consulate or for any other personnel there?
Sure, that's a great question. Our job is just to provide security at the Annex.
At the Annex.
Us going over and helping. Yeah, us going and helping. And I've actually done other QRF missions for DoD assets or Department of State assets in other countries. That's not our job. We don't have to do that. We did that because they're Americans, and they are our friends, and they need help. So, no, we did not have to do that. That was not. And, in fact, if any of us would have been injured at the consulate, we would have had a hard time getting, because we don't get covered by government insurance. We have to pay for our own insurance through the Defense Base Act. Since that wasn't in our scope of duties, it would have been hard for us to actually file claims for injuries sustained at the consulate, which I never filed a claim, even though I lost a lot of hearing that night.
But the point of the matter is, you were stepping outside of your normal zone and, if you will, your own comfort factor, because you were now putting yourself in jeopardy, but at the same time, in such a fashion that you were not licensed to do, or I should say licensed, but that was not in your normal contract.
You're exactly right. That was not in our job description.
So this was purely voluntary on your part.
Yeah, if for all intents and purposes, if you look for a definition, yes, it was. But as any, and especially I know the Marines that are listening to you, when Americans in trouble, you're not sitting on your hands. You're going to go help out.
Absolutely. Back to this issue of the events there. Now you've been to the consulate. You've seen the damage and destruction. You're trying to recover bodies. Now you come under attack, do you not?
Yes, we do. We actually came under a counterattack where they were trying to retake the compound. And honestly, I think to me it was more of a plan to, hey, let's let the good guys come in, suck them in. We did it before. Mm-hmm. Once they get inside, let's go ahead and see if we can do the same thing we did before, and just go ahead and eliminate the threat while we're in the consulate area. Honestly, it's a pretty dang smart move by them, because they basically collect us into basically a kill box, and they know exactly where we're at, which they know we didn't have a choice but to go there because we were trying to save the people that were there. So it was real smart, but I don't think they realized that the guys there that had some teeth to fight back, and that's what we did.
To that point, it's been said that it was a loosely organized rally and protest, didn't have a lot of organization. You're now under attack. And by the way, I want to go back to something. You are Army Mustang, and I'm meaning that he started out and enlisted, became an officer, Army 75th Ranger Regiment. You also said you've had numerous experience in the Middle East. You have the professional skills to understand what you're fighting.
I would say so. Yeah, I think I've got. Without being a smart butt. I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. Because I want to get into the analysis of this in just a few moments. So you're under attack. You're now heading back to the Annex. Tell me the situation there. What was it like?
Sure. Actually, we one thing, if you're under attack, and at least in our small element, and not having security along our route back, we have to deal with the threat at that time. The worst thing that you can do, because armored vehicles you can't shoot out of. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like you're going. You've got a Bradley, or you've got an MRAP or something that has guns sticking out of it. You're in an armored vehicle. Windows don't go down. You're basically. I would rather be outside of a vehicle on foot fighting than being stuck in an armored vehicle. So we dealt with the threat. There was one guy with an RPG that was basically trying to pick us off or just with his area fired weapon and take us out, and we ended up killing him, and we actually were able to suppress the counterattack, fight it off, we actually went home unscathed during that time. We were able to go because we came the route that we came in on, we left on, and whatever 17th February militia that were friendly to us, I think we were very lucky because they actually were able to, at least their presence there was able to dissuade any sort of attack on our car on our way back. Now, that can't be said for the State Department guys, though. They went the wrong direction. During the counterattack, we had them leave so we could fight off the counterattack and let them get home because they were basically in shock, and why wouldn't they be? And they went the wrong direction, and they were actually ambushed on the way back to the Annex. And luckily, their armor held, but they got shot up real good trying to get back to the Annex. And like I said, the level 7 armor, which is the highest grade armor you can get on a civilian type vehicle, it held, and they got back on flat tires on run flats.
Wow.
And if you ever have Mark on Oz, he'll tell you because he saw what the vehicle looked like when they started rolling back in our gate. And they were shot up real good. Like I said, luckily though, they none of the bullets and they weren't hit with an RPG, which was very lucky, very, very lucky by them.
So you're getting back to the Annex, and of course you're exhausted at this point. Now you find that the Annex is under attack. Again, I find this interesting in light of the fact that it's been described that this was a rally and a protest. By the way, we'll get into this. You have mortar fire coming in. Amidst all of this, what's taking place there at the Annex, and how are you defending yourself? Because, quite frankly, more of them than you.
Yeah, we had a plan on we always have a base defense plan at any of the bases that we go to. So when we got back, we knew where we needed to go to best defend our base. So it really wasn't, oh crap, they're going to attack us. It was, all right, let's get ready, guys. Let's refit, get some more ammo, get up on the roofs where we need to go, get our sectors of fire, and if they come and try to attack the Annex, we're going to slaughter them. And that was our mindset. And luckily we had an awesome team there. We got along great. We were all instinctive to each other. We didn't have to say much, and that helped out a bunch. So we were able to fight off the attack on the Annex fairly easy because with the experience that we had, and we're all older guys. We're all in our 40s, so there's a maturity level that helps out as well. And so, and we did. We slaughtered them. We literally. And I don't. If I offend people with that word, I'm sorry, but that's how it was. But until the mortars came.
Right. And just before the mortars came, as I recall reading the book, you're now hearing. And there are two issues. One, there's conversation about the fact that there was real-time video that was being seen back at the State Department, and you also are now beginning to hear information about the possibility of this related to a protest. Am I correct on that? You were getting...
I did not know about a protest until I got in Germany 2 days later, and I saw it on TV like everybody else.
Okay.
I had no idea.
All right.
No idea at all.
But the comment was made that there was real-time video that was being watched back at the State Department. Is that accurate?
Sure. No, there was a in the book, people that read it will see that I requested an ISR and a Spectre, after 5 minutes after we got the call. An ISR is a UAV or a drone.
Right.
And we found out later, and I didn't even know this during that night because they weren't giving us the feed. They weren't telling us until after midnight or I think it was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning or so, that we actually had that feed, that drone feed. Nobody was passing all that information to us, which would have been nice to have until after the first attack on the Annex. And then even when we were getting the feed, it was being passed through an intermediary. We didn't have direct communication with whoever was flying the ISR, so it was behind 30 seconds. So they would give us information off that ISR feed, and people can read this in the book. I actually made a joke out of it. And I was already seeing it. So they say, hey, we got movement to the north, 3 people, and like, well, that's great. I saw that 30 seconds ago. Right. And I remember I got on the radio. And I said, hey, just might as well just cut off that effing ISR feed because it's worthless. and if people read, and I think guys that have been in the service or know that they'll get a kick out of it because I'm sure they've been in the same situations. We're like, yeah, this is great. But what bothered me the most is after the fact, we found out that we actually had that ISR feed when we were at the consulate, and we didn't know that. They didn't bother to tell us that they were getting real-time information, which could have helped us when we got our counterattack at the consulate, and to tell where people were at. So we may have been able to stay there longer and try to continue to find the ambassador. So a lot of that stuff that you guys that everybody found out in the news is when I found out about it. So it's kind of disheartening.
The book, 13 Hours, The Inside Account of What Really Happened in Benghazi. Our guest this afternoon, and I thank him for taking the time to be with us, Kris. Tanto is his nickname, Paronto. As I mentioned, former Army Ranger with the Army's 75th Ranger Regiment. Kris, let's step to the end of the fighting and the mortar fire. Obviously, this is not being done by a ragtag group of people. They have the equipment. They know how to use it. So what's your estimation now of what took place from the beginning to end? I mean, you were under mortar fire.
Sure.
This constant source that it was put together, it was a ragtag group of people. It doesn't hold water.
No, it doesn't. And especially the mortarmen out there, they were far for effect with the first one. They didn't have to bracket it. They didn't have to walk anything in. I mean, it was their first mortar was 10 meters from the top of the villa that basically was our command center, and just bad timing at that time. That was where the majority of our guys on the roof were. And then the next three that hit were right dead center. You don't do that. I think, was it General Petraeus that said it could have been guys in the back of a truck shooting mortars? No, that's not. I mean, our guys are the best. Marines and Rangers are the best, and mortarmen in general. 11 Charlies are the best at shooting mortars, and they would tell you. I was a Bravo. Sorry, guys, I was an infantry guy. I wasn't a mortarman, which they're infantry guys too, but they're experts at the mortars. They'd tell you that's dang near impossible. So those guys had it locked on from the get-go. It had to be it was a target reference point, a TRP, from the get-go. So no, I'm not buying it. And I've been through a lot of protests in other countries. I've been caught in the middle of a lot of gatherings per se, sometimes turning violent. Never saw anybody bring an RPG to a protest. I've never seen it. Maybe some guys have. I haven't. I'm not buying that at all.
Kris Tanto Paronto, our guest. 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. And Kris is one of the principals in the book. The book, of course, written by Mitchell Zuckoff. Kris, looking at what you experienced, and I don't want to get into a lot of details because I want folks to read the book, and
sure.
They would do a better job in understanding all of this by reading the book.
Definitely.
The important aspect of this is the politics, sadly, the stories associated with this that came out immediately after. Here you've been through this. We've talked about what your experience was at the Annex, at the consulate, and at the Annex. Now, the question goes to, one, there was some questions about talking to you all by the team, by members of Congress. Have you had an opportunity to basically provide information to the congressional hearing?
Yes, we have. We were actually interviewed, or we went in front of the HIPC, the House Intel Subcommittee. That was Congressman Rogers' committee, and we did tell our story. And like I said, I've said the same thing that I've been telling you guys. Whatever you've heard from me on this radio station, I said the same thing to them during the hearings. And why the determination came about that there wasn't a delay, there wasn't a stand down. I don't know. Maybe my word doesn't hold as much weight as others. I don't know. And I don't even want to speculate why. They have their reasons, and they made their own decisions with what they wanted to put out. And okay, as a Ranger and as a subordinate to people that they did what they're going to do. And am I disappointed? Sure, I am. But I can't crawl up in their brains and figure out why they decided to put out what they did. And I'm not even going to try to. All I'm going to do is say I did what I was supposed to. I told the truth, and I have to be able to sleep at night with that.
With that said, and I won't keep you much longer, and I thank you for your time. Again,
Sure.
Kris Tanto Paronto. The subject now goes to all the politics associated with this. But you for sure. have 4 Americans that are not coming home alive, Roan being one of them, people that you have become good friends with. You're seeing the politics. How does this impact you and the rest of the team? But let's talk about you. How does this impact you? How did it and how does it as we speak?
You know, I'm not a politician, so I don't let it impact me. I don't. If I see something, I don't watch it. I don't watch the news too much. I do every once in a while. So it doesn't impact me because I'm telling the truth still. If it impacted me negatively, I would be out there stomping my feet, going, they're lying. But I'm not. That's not what I want. If anything, it's impacted me positively because it's reinforced, or it's given me the resolve and the intestinal fortitude to continue to tell the truth. You got to make, when you get lemons, you make lemonade. Well, that's what we're doing. So we're going to stay positive, and it definitely has brought us. We were close before, but it has really brought the team extremely close now. So I don't know if you can even get any closer than what we went through that night. But every time that something comes out that maybe tries to downplay what we did, or they're saying, hey, these guys just want to sell books. All it does is bring us closer together, and it's a great feeling.
Well,
it's great. We can turn it positive.
Kris, that's a heck of a way to want to try to sell books, to get real projectiles shooting at you all for 13 solid hours. No,
I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. That's not the way to do it.
Not in the long shot. Kris, one quick question for you. What was the purpose of the Annex itself? I didn't ask that earlier, but I'm just curious.
No, and it's I can tell you what our job at any of the annexes is to collect intel to catch bad guys. Okay. That's the job of any place over there. It's to catch bad guys, okay. and that's what the agency's for.
With that said, of course, the comment was made we were going to bring the perpetrators to justice, and we haven't done a very good job not catching many bad guys over there. I'll leave it. I'll leave that alone. I'll leave that alone, Kris. I just had to bring that up.
If you don't mind, I like to give one comment on that. I don't think we should be catching the bad guys. I think we should be killing the bad guys. There's no catching there. That was a war. That was a combat operation. We don't need to catch them or bring them to justice. They just need to. We need to go and we need to go and kill them. I believe a lot of your listeners, especially ex-Marines and ex-soldiers and current, would agree with me there.
Kris Tanto Paronto, our guest, and I thank him for being with us and also appreciate his outstanding service, both in uniform and out of uniform, for this country. And Kris, I do appreciate this. And by the way, he is the subject of this story, 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi, the author, Mitchell Zuckoff. Kris, look forward to possible conversations in the future on this. This is a topic I think that will not be going away. Thank you very much.
Anytime you want me on, you just ask. Fantastic interview. I really appreciate it. It was an honor. Honor to be on your show.
Honor to have you with us here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station FM 107 AM 1240.